Don't be a lemming. You may have heard that phrase, normally meaning don't jump on the bandwagon, don't follow the crowd blindly, do your own thinking. Why are lemmings mentioned? Well, because of the myth that they will follow each other blindly without thinking about it, sometimes over the edge of a cliff, much to their detriment. Except that that's not true. It's from a 1958 Disney movie. And yeah, there were lemmings involved, but the scene was fabricated. Lemmings will move in herds and then disperse depending on the food supply or shortage, and they will swim across bodies of water, sometimes meeting their demise. But that movie, well, it implied that they would do things without thinking, and also the implication was that the lemmings were trying to do something in terms of population control. At least that's what certain individuals took from the movie, and thus it became a myth. But it wasn't true. Why did Disney do that? Well, to grab your attention, to make a spectacle, to give you something emotionally compelling, and also, of course, to generate some income, perhaps even profit. Apparently unrelated, pharmaceutical giants not only sold HIV-infected treatment to NHS. An article from the Telegraph goes on, pharmaceutical companies knowingly sold the treatment infected with HIV to the NHS, the Telegraph can reveal. Internal documents from American pharmaceutical companies show they knew a wonder drug in inverted commas, made from human plasma could transmit HIV to patients, but they sold it regardless. The wonder drug is factor 8, by the way. Let's look at this headline. Pfizer accused of bringing discredit on industry with unnecessary vaccine tweet. Pfizer has been accused of bringing discredit on the pharma industry after senior employees promoted its unlicensed COVID-19 vaccine through social media at the height of the pandemic. Pharmaceutical watchdog, the Prescription Medicines Code of Practice Authority, PMCPA, found that the pharma giant promoted unlicensed medicines and violated its regulatory code 5 times. Back in 2020, Dr. Berkeley Phillips, medical director of Pfizer UK, retweeted a post on X from a US employee which stated, "Our vaccine candidate is 95% effective in preventing COVID-19 and 94% effective in people over 65 years old. We will file all of our data with health authorities within days. Thank you to every volunteer in our trial and to all who are tirelessly fighting this pandemic." The post was also reshared by 4 other UK employees of the company. However, the PMCPA ruled that the post had limited information about the vaccine's efficacy, no reference to adverse events, and no safety information. Therefore, the message resulted in an unlicensed medicine being proactively disseminated on Twitter to health professions and members of the public in the UK, the regulatory body said. As a result of the misjudged tweets, Pfizer was charged £34,800 in administrative costs. Now, there are other things I could read out about some pharmaceutical organisations, including Pfizer, but very often those seem to get stifled for all sorts of reasons. We'll see that if this gets through any particular filters or bypasses the algorithm watchdogs, although I'm quoting from an article and I'm quoting factually. I'm also making no scientific or medical claims. Then let's move on to science news. Social media harms teens' mental health. Mounting evidence shows. What now? And then, from the same article by Sujata Gupta, in January, Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Facebook's parent company Meta, appeared at a congressional hearing to answer questions about how social media potentially harms children. Zuckerberg opened by saying, "The existing body of scientific work has not shown a causal link between using social media and young people having worse mental health." But many social scientists would disagree with that statement. In recent years, studies have started to show a causal link between teen social media use and reduced well-being or mood disorders, chiefly depression and anxiety. Researchers delved into whether the platform's introduction across college campuses in the mid-2000s increased symptoms associated with depression and anxiety. The answer was a clear yes. I'll read that again. The answer was a clear yes, says MIT economist Alexei Makarin, a co-author of the study, which appeared in the November 2022 American Economic Review. And here's what Alexei says. There is still a lot to be explored, but to say there is no causal evidence that social media causes mental health issues, to that I definitely object. And I agree with him. The concern and the studies come from statistics showing that social media use in teens ages 13 to 17 is now almost ubiquitous. 2/3 of teens report using TikTok, and some 60% of teens report using Instagram or Snapchat, a 2022 survey found. Only 30% said they used Facebook. Shame. Another survey showed that girls, on average, allot roughly 3.4 hours per day to TikTok, Instagram and Facebook, compared with roughly 2.1 hours among boys. At the same time, more teens are showing signs of depression than ever, especially girls. Just a coincidence? I'm sure. Now, what I've been attempting to highlight so far is this concept of individuals, organizations, and certainly and very often big organizations wanting to grab your attention, wanting to grab your time, and potentially not really caring too much about what that may do to you. In a sense, we are the lemmings. Let's go on. The online brain, how the internet may be changing our cognition. And this again from an article, as with all of them, link in the descriptions. However, the ability of the internet to capture and hold attention is not solely due to the quality of media content available online. Rather, it is also driven by the underlying design and presentation of the online world. One such example is the self-evolving attraction mechanism, whereby aspects of the internet that fail to gain attention are quickly drowned out in the sea of incoming information, while the successful aspects of the adverts, articles, apps, or anything that does manage to capture our attention, even superficially, are logged through clicks and scrolls, noticed through online shares, and subsequently proliferated and expanded upon. Alongside this, leading technology companies have been accused of intentionally capitalizing on the addictive potential of the internet by studying, testing and refining the attention-grabbing aspects of their websites and apps to promote extremely high levels of engagement without due concern for users' well-being. So, you've seen this, you've no doubt seen it. The algorithms, they're learning. They're learning about all of us and each of us individually. So what you like, what gets through the sea of noise is noticed, and you get more of that. Now, again, consider that that's feeding you, feeding potentially your habit of wanting to find out about these particular issues. But how healthy is that, to be fed the same stuff? We can begin to exist in our own echo chamber. Now that wouldn't be good. Well, it wouldn't be good for us. Let's move on. From this article, Infinite Scroll, the web's slot machine. To make correct predictions, the brain accesses memories which allow us to deduce what's coming next in an early... Sorry, I didn't deduce what was going next. In a nearly instantaneous process of pattern recognition, the ability to learn is simply the conditioning of the brain to recognize cause and blank. I like that, because you were expecting, as was I, when I first read it, effect, weren't you? Of course you were. That's because your brain has learned that these two words, cause and effect, tend to go together. So the author is illustrating cause and blank. It's this conditioning that creates cognitive shortcuts and habits, allowing us to process tremendous amounts of information all at once. Our brains move known causal patterns to long-term storage, cause and effect, so that our attention can be devoted to learning new things. It's also why we can make mistakes when we use one particular problem-solving circuit. Maybe more about that another time. And nothing holds our attention better than the unknown. The things that captivate, engross and entertain us all have an element of surprise. Our brains can't get enough of trying to predict what's next, and our dopamine system kicks into high gear when we're waiting to know if our team will make the field goal, how the dice will land, or how the movie plot ends. Like a loose slot machine, the Infinite Scroll gives users fast access to variable rewards. Interestingly, our brain isn't wired to seek pleasure alone. In fact, much of our motivation comes from alleviating the pain of desire. Dopamine levels spike when we're just about to find reward and plummet after we receive it. To get us to do just about anything, evolution uses this chemical cascade to induce anticipation, motivation, and finally pain alleviation. And somehow we call this endless merry-go-round fun. Yeah, well put. And so it plummets after we receive it. The dopamine plummets after we receive the reward. So what are we then looking for? More dopamine, anticipation, novelty, what's next? And I think that what's really important to bear in mind from all of these things, if I look at what I've been talking about here as a collective, I've mentioned already that companies want our time, want our attention, want our money, and they will do whatever it is that they need to do to get that time, money, and attention. And some of them may not be too ethical. Some of them may get a slap on the wrist, £34,000. I mean, absolutely nothing. And I could talk about other examples in that industry, but I won't do that today. Caveat emptor, buyer beware. That's us. We're the buyer, but we're also the product if we're not careful, if we're not very careful. And so when you look around during these unsettled times, this unsettled world, bear in mind that when you say to yourself, they wouldn't do that. Oh, there's no way they would act like that. No way could they be that unscrupulous. Would they just treat us as some kind of, product? No way. What you're doing, potentially, is using your value set to base how you think these other people will behave. Your moral code, your ethical standards. They wouldn't do that. No, what you're saying is you wouldn't do that. Again, buyer beware, product potentially beware, beware of potentially becoming the product. There are unscrupulous individuals out there, and some organizations, not all, but some, quite a few, they don't care. They don't have that level of empathy, and if they did, well, it's hidden in the mix. And people who have a bit of a conscience, who are in these organizations, maybe they're terrified about not managing to pay the mortgage next month. Maybe they've become inured to this way of doing things. Maybe they look at others and think, oh, it must be okay because so-and-so is doing it. In a sense, they're jumping on their own bandwagon. In a sense, they're being the lemmings. But in actual fact, they're being the humans who were cruel to the lemmings. And our job is not to become the Disney version of the lemming and follow blindly. When you look around, remember, as I've said, that value set, your own moral code, ethical standards, and recognize that some people, some organizations may well be the antithesis of all that you hold dear and represent. And step back. Don't jump on the bandwagon. If your logical brain and your intuitive brain, which has been by some described as, actually it was mentioned in one of those articles, this pattern matching thing. Over years, you've stored patterns so that quite quickly you can make decisions. And that can manifest in a gut feeling or just a sense of, this is wrong. So if logically you can't work it out and you have this intuitive or sense, this gut feeling, or just this feeling generally niggling away that there's something wrong here, then it's likely there is. So despite what everyone else is doing, despite the attractive adverts, despite the enticement, then don't jump on the bandwagon. Caveat emptor. And so when we look around, let's take social media. It can do good, but there's this Goldilocks zone. Too much is definitely harmful to probably everyone, but at least most of us. And too little for some people, well, it may not be healthy because that's the way they connect. But overall, we've got to look out for ourselves. And I would suggest, along with trusting the logical and intuitive thinking put together, that overall sense of this is not right, something's going on, seek the truth. Do your own research. Talk to people. Broaden out your scope. Don't get stuck in what the algorithm wants to feed you, that echo chamber. That's leading you down so many rabbit holes that are probably not healthy. Find people with a different opinion. Talk to them. Don't argue online if you can possibly avoid it. Talk to them. Triangulate. Look up the original research. Figure it out. You can do it. You're not dumb. You're smart, but some people will try and dumb you down. Find that truth. Tell yourself the truth about you. Be honest with yourself. Tell the truth to others and seek the truth. And remember, the truth will set you free. But when you find it, well, in the first instance, it may well piss you off.